If you misunderstand what drives attraction, you will spend your entire life performing and never truly commanding desire. Most men are taught to believe that women want kindness, attention, compliments, emotional availability, constant reassurance, endless effort. They are told that if they listen more, give more, sacrifice more, explain more, and prove themselves more, they will become irresistible. They are trained to believe that love is earned through compliance and validation, and yet they watch the same pattern repeat. The man who bends too quickly is admired politely, but not desired deeply. The man who over-explains loses mystery. The man who seeks approval loses leverage. The man who tries to be perfect becomes predictable. And predictability is not power. Machiavelli understood something uncomfortable about human nature. Attraction does not grow from submission. It grows from perceived strength, stability, and psychological gravity. Not cruelty, not arrogance, but grounded, immovable certainty. The only thing women want, at the deepest psychological level, is security. Not financial security alone, not emotional reassurance alone, not social status alone. Those are surface interpretations. What they want is structural security. A man whose internal world does not collapse under pressure. A man whose direction does not depend on her approval. A man whose identity is not negotiated in every conversation. Security is not softness, it is controlled strength. And most men destroy their perceived security by chasing validation. You think attraction grows when you prove yourself constantly, but constant proving signals insecurity. Insecurity signals instability. Instability erodes safety. Understand this clearly. Women are biologically and psychologically wired to evaluate stability. Throughout history, alignment with unstable men meant risk. Risk of abandonment, risk of emotional chaos, risk of social vulnerability, risk of survival collapse. Whether consciously or unconsciously, that assessment still exists. Machiavelli would not analyze romance through fantasy. He would analyze it through incentives and power structures. In any dynamic, the person who needs the other more holds less power. The person who fears loss more negotiates harder. The person who over-invests early lowers perceived value. This is not about manipulation. It is about awareness. When a man becomes overly available too early, he signals scarcity of options. Scarcity of options signals dependence. Dependence reduces psychological weight. Psychological weight is what creates attraction. Women do not want a man who is unpredictable in morality. They want a man who is unpredictable in emotional dependence. A man who is calm when praised, calm when challenged, calm when tested. A man whose mood does not swing based on her tone. Emotional self-control signals security. Security generates trust. Trust allows desire to deepen. Most men attempt to secure attraction by oversharing their intentions immediately. They confess feelings quickly. They define the relationship prematurely. They over-communicate their devotion before structure is built. This feels honest. It feels noble. It feels romantic. But from a power perspective, it collapses tension. Tension fuels attraction. Machiavelli understood that tension sustains influence. When outcomes are uncertain, attention increases. When outcomes are guaranteed, interest stabilizes and often declines. Women are not drawn to chaos. They are drawn to controlled unpredictability. A man whose direction is clear, but whose next move is not fully exposed. A man who does not telegraph every emotional shift. A man who does not seek reassurance when misunderstood. Because reassurance seeking signals insecurity. Insecurity erodes safety, and safety is the foundation. Here is the brutal truth. Women test stability. Not maliciously, not consciously always, but instinctively. They test boundaries. They test reactions. They test patience. They test emotional control. Not because they want drama, but because they are assessing resilience. When a man reacts emotionally to small provocations, she learns something. When he becomes defensive, she learns something. When he withdraws in insecurity, she learns something. She learns that under pressure, he shifts. And if he shifts under minor tension, what happens under major tension? Machiavelli observed rulers constantly. He noted that people lose respect for leaders who are easily shaken. The same principle applies in intimate dynamics. Attraction is not built on who talks the most. It is built on who remains centered the longest. Women want a man whose presence lowers anxiety, not increases it. And anxiety increases when a man is unpredictable in commitment, unstable in self-worth, or dependent on external validation. The mistake men make is confusing dominance with aggression. True dominance is composure. It is the ability to remain steady while others react. It is the refusal to chase validation. It is the capacity to walk away without emotional collapse. Walking away calmly is the ultimate signal of security, not as a threat, not as a game, but as genuine detachment from desperation. Desperation repels, not because women are cruel, but because desperation signals instability. Instability signals risk, and risk undermines security. You must understand something deeper. Women are constantly evaluating future positioning. They observe how you handle conflict, how you handle silence, how you handle disagreement, how you handle boundaries. When you over-explain your decisions to avoid discomfort, you appear unsure. When you apologize excessively for setting boundaries, you appear negotiable. When you soften every firm stance to maintain harmony, you appear uncertain of your own direction. Certainty is magnetic. Certainty is rare, and rarity creates value. Machiavelli would never advise cruelty, but he would advise clarity. He would say, do not sacrifice your structure to maintain temporary approval. If a woman senses that your identity bends to accommodate her moods, she does not feel safe. She feels in control. And control does not generate desire. It generates management. No woman wants to manage a man emotionally. She wants to respect him. Respect grows when boundaries hold. Boundaries that collapse under pressure dissolve attraction. This is why over-communication can backfire. Explaining every thought, revealing every insecurity, seeking reassurance for every doubt, it feels intimate. But if done prematurely, it signals emotional dependency. Emotional dependency weakens polarity. Polarity fuels attraction. A man grounded in his mission, purpose, and internal code radiates something different. He does not need to announce his worth. He does not negotiate his standards publicly. He does not chase after silence. Silence does not threaten him. And when silence does not threaten him, it unsettles others. Because the person who fears silence least controls emotional pacing. Emotional pacing determines power. Women want a man who chooses them, not one who clings to them. Choice signals abundance. Clinging signals scarcity. Scarcity signals insecurity. Insecurity destabilizes desire. This is the first layer of brutal truth. Now we go deeper, because surface advice will not transform your positioning. The only thing women want is not dominance. It is not money. It is not beauty. It is not status alone. It is emotional and structural security combined with unpredictability of outcome. Let that settle. Emotional security means you do not crumble under pressure. Structural security means you have direction independent of her presence. Unpredictability of outcome means she cannot fully control your emotional responses or your availability. If you remove unpredictability, she relaxes into comfort, but not necessarily desire. If you remove security, she feels tension, but not safety. The balance of both creates attraction. Machiavelli wrote that it is better to be feared than loved if one cannot be both. In romantic terms, this translates differently. It is better to be respected than adored if one cannot be both. Adoration without respect leads to boredom. Respect without emotional warmth leads to distance. But respect anchored in stability creates depth. Women observe consistency over time. Words mean little compared to patterns. If you claim strength but react defensively to minor criticism, your words collapse. If you claim independence but constantly seek reassurance, your frame dissolves. Frame is everything. Your frame is your internal position. It is the lens through which you interpret events. If your frame is stable, you do not overreact to emotional fluctuations. If your frame is unstable, you adjust behavior to regain validation. When you adjust too often, you become predictable. Predictability reduces tension. Reduced tension lowers attraction. This does not mean playing games. It means mastering self-control. Self-control is the highest form of power. When she challenges you lightly and you respond calmly, she recalibrates. When she withdraws slightly and you do not chase impulsively, she recalibrates. When she expresses emotion intensely and you remain grounded, she recalibrates. Recalibration is the shift of power. The person who remains centered controls recalibration. Women want to feel emotionally safe expressing themselves, but they also want to feel that their partner is stronger than their mood. Stronger does not mean louder. Stronger means steadier. If her emotional state dictates your behavior every time, she unconsciously senses imbalance. Imbalance erodes trust. Trust is not built on words, it is built on nervous system regulation. If your presence calms rather than agitates, attachment deepens. But if you oscillate between over-affection and withdrawal, you create instability. Instability creates anxiety. Anxiety disrupts long-term desire. Now understand the structural layer. Women are hyper-aware of social perception, not in vanity, but in positioning. A partner represents alignment. Alignment with a man who lacks direction can damage perceived security. Direction is more attractive than attention. A man obsessed with a woman but lacking purpose eventually becomes emotionally heavy. A man committed to growth, mission, discipline, who invites a woman into that direction rather than making her the direction, generates gravity. Gravity pulls, it does not chase. Machiavelli emphasized maintaining control of narrative. In relationships, narrative is how you define yourself. If you allow a woman to define your emotional state constantly, you surrender narrative control. The brutally honest reality is this: women are drawn to men who can leave. Not because they want abandonment, but because the ability to leave signals non-dependence. Non-dependence signals choice. Choice signals power. And power, when calm and contained, feels safe. Desperation feels unsafe. You must also understand emotional concealment properly. This does not mean suppressing feelings, it means revealing them strategically. Vulnerability shared after trust is powerful. Vulnerability shared before structure is built creates imbalance. Timing is everything. Machiavelli survived because he mastered timing. He did not reveal intentions before securing position. In relationships, do not reveal emotional dependency before confirming alignment. Alignment is tested over time. Observe how she handles boundaries. Observe how she handles disagreement. Observe how she handles silence. Stability under pressure reveals long-term potential. Women do the same with you. If you fail small tests repeatedly, jealousy reactions, insecurity spirals, emotional outbursts, she unconsciously lowers her perception of your stability. Lowered stability reduces long-term security perception. Security perception determines attachment strength. Now let's confront a difficult truth. Women are not attracted to effort alone. Effort without structure is invisible. You can text constantly, call constantly, compliment constantly, and still lose positioning if you lack calm authority. Authority in romance is not control over her. It is control over yourself. Self-mastery is irresistible because it signals predictability of strength, not predictability of behavior. There is a difference. Predictable strength means you remain grounded. Predictable behavior means you always respond the same way. One builds safety, The other builds boredom. So what is the strategic shift? Build a life that does not revolve around validation. Speak less about your emotions. Demonstrate stability through action. Set boundaries once. Do not debate them repeatedly. Withdraw calmly when disrespected. Do not threaten. Pursue with intention. Do not chase with desperation. Remain warm, but never negotiable in self-respect. This combination creates what many misunderstand as mystery. It is not mystery. It is disciplined transparency. She sees your values clearly, but not your vulnerabilities prematurely. Over time, when security is established, vulnerability deepens connection. But connection without initial respect collapses. Respect is the gatekeeper, and respect is earned through composure. If this perspective challenges you, that is the point. You were conditioned to believe that more emotion equals more connection. But unmanaged emotion equals volatility. Volatility undermines safety. Safety underpins desire. The man who masters his impulses masters his positioning. The man who understands leverage understands attraction. And the man who builds internal stability becomes irreplaceable, not because he demands loyalty, but because he radiates security. Women do not want perfection. They want steadiness. They want direction. They want a man who can handle pressure without collapsing. They want someone who chooses them, not someone who needs them. If this changed how you view dynamics, reflect on where you have been seeking validation instead of building gravity. Stay grounded. Stay disciplined. And remember, attraction is not built by chasing approval, but by embodying stability. If this sharpened your awareness, stay with this channel. We break down power, psychology, and human nature with realism, not fantasy. Comment below what insight challenged you most, and share this with someone who is intelligent but still confusing effort with leverage. Because the deepest form of attraction is not intensity, it is security. And security begins within.